Hello and welcome to the Storytelling with Puck podcast. We will, as always, start with a story.
Conflicting beats. Her heart, the drum, gives her two conflicting beats. Happy is tatam, regular swing. She kisses the sun and walls in the tender embrace of the moon. Sleep powders her with freshness like the spring, tatam. The world is tranquil, so she thrives. She makes love, she observes beauty. She shares life's joys with the world. But sometimes the drum changes its beat to thump, thump, thump. And her life becomes chaotic. She cringes, desiring that's appeasing tomb. For the tempestuous thumps ruptures her heart, thump, thump, thump. Turbulent teardrops linger. She grabs wildly at indifferent air to stop the intrusive beat that swells as she suffers. She must expel it to reclaim her calm. She chides her heart for housing a drum that gives disquieting thumps. She ponders the beat. Thump, thump, thump. Each thump stabs her heart. Thump, thump, thump. The unfortunate rhythm drums on, bumping, tumbling her life into complacency. She hates the thumps that vindictively disturb her calm. All that thumping bring grave uncertainty. Why'd it ever rival tatam the calm? She rolls that drum of hers frantically in search of peaceful tatam that will cover her with balm. Asleep enthralled. Occasionally he sat there on mornings as I boarded the train, a silent figure with a placid stare, giving life to the train's inanimate chair. He would smile and nod. I would acknowledge him with a subtle smile fanning my face, and soon he'd be asleep enthralled, perhaps composing a fairy tale. I would be sunk into my chair, attuned to the train's veering song, intensely writing life's cares away. But yesterday, he wasn't there, neither the day before, as I boarded the train, and I felt a void. Some said he had gone far away to the land where dreams and fairies fill days.
Thank you so much for reading those two pieces. I was with you emotionally and connected every step of the way, Sheron. We're going to talk more about that in a couple of minutes, yes. And we're going to find out more about you as well. Yes. Before we do, let's have a quick introduction to the podcast.
You're listening to Storytelling with Puck, the podcast designed to show the power of stories in life and in business. Stories connect us on a deeper level, which is why we'll be sharing, chatting about, and feeling the impact they have on every one of us. Your host, Stefano, is the founder of Puck Creations, and we work with your business to define a clear, consistent, relevant brand which stands out from the crowd. We use that brand to create content that makes your audience think, feel, and take action. Visit puckcreations.com to find out more.
Before you do that, vegans, vegetarians, and carnivores alike, we have a poet, a writer of multiple genres, and a published vegan cookbook author with us today. I promise that's just one person. Let's discover more about the sensational Guyanese American flavours of the amazing Sheron Mingo Y. Sheron, tell us about yourself.
Hi, Stefano. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So, yeah, you said all those wonderful things. I have written a 5-volume vegan delectable cookbook because friends keep bothering me, pestering me for recipes and just filling me with praise, enjoying my food. And so being a vegan and being a writer, I thought, oh my goodness, why don't I explore? It was the most difficult thing, Stefano. I'm still tweaking the books. It was so difficult because I'm multi-genre, but that vegan cookbooks are not one of my genres. So
Okay.
as life propels us to learn new things and explore, that's what I did.
Incredible. So, tell us a little bit more about what made you. So, you said that your friends were encouraging you because they liked they liked the food that you were making them, and they wanted to discover how they could make it themselves. So, you were writing a book for them, really, which is as good a reason as any to write a book, in my opinion. But before that, let's go back a couple of steps. What made you get into cooking in the first place, and particularly what made you become a vegan and want to cook in vegan treats, shall we say?
Those are really great questions. Stefano, I was intrigued with cooking from a child, and not because I needed to, because both my parents, my mom and dad, were awesome cooks. But I remember at age 11, I cooked my first dish, and it was pigeon pea rice. And the rice had the perfect texture. And that's because I had watched my mom and dad for years stand up their legs or shirt tail or skirt tail, my elder siblings and I watched them cook. So from a child, I knew that I loved cooking. And then for a period of about 10 years, between my age of, I would say 11 on, I'm still 21 now. When my mom was away, I did a lot of cooking to help my dad and stuff like that because my mom came to the US. So I was intrigued with cooking from a child. Now, I never wanted to become a vegetarian or vegan. It was never my intentions. I fought it viciously. But I will tell you, I did stop eating red meat when I was, I think, 18. I just thought it was so fibrous and useless. And I know most people forgive me, the carnivores, but I had stopped eating red meat since in my teens, yes. And fish I liked, but my chicken I love. Mm-hmm. I love me my roasted chicken. And then my body, I think also influences could be my religion. I'm a Seventh Adventist. And we're very versed with the healthy lifestyle. So I was aware of vegetarianism and veganism as a child and all that gluten. Back then they called it gluten and that sort of thing. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. My body, about, I would say over 17 years ago, suddenly repelled dairy and meat.
That's really interesting.
Yes, I had no control over it. It just rejected it. And when I tried, I literally would feel as though I wanted to vomit it up.
Amazing. You're not the only person to tell me that. Quite a few of my friends and actually some of my family members have had similar experiences where one day suddenly they just started to struggle to eat dairy and they started to struggle to eat meat. And people obviously become vegans and vegetarians for many different reasons. Some people do it for health reasons, some people do it for environmental reasons, and some people do it for animal rights reasons. But it's interesting to see how many more people are now adopting a diet of eating some meat but way, way less. I'm one of those people. I occasionally eat meat, but it's very rare that I'll eat it at home. I'll eat it when I go out. And even then, it's even rarer that I'll eat red meat. And that's mainly because of health and environmental reasons. But again, it's fascinating that your experience was through physically not being able to sustain the food. And that's what drove you to that.
For sure. And I will say something, if I might. And I say this because I honestly believe that we live in a free world where people ought to be allowed to do what's right and wrong based on what's ethical and that sort of thing. And so as a vegan, forgive me, I love you, my vegan population. My vegan brothers and sisters out there, don't stone me. I love you to death. But I am not and will never be a person that will tell carnivores you cannot eat poultry or fish or that sort of thing. Now, I will not wear fur, as beautiful as it is. And this was a decision before I even became a vegan, because I felt, look at how beautiful those bears and tigers and creatures and why would I want to kill them just for luxury? I know that in some places they needed it for the winter, but we don't, it's not a necessity now in our modern day society. So I will not wear fur, but I will not stone others that eat a piece of steak or poultry or whatnot. I couldn't do it.
As far as I'm concerned, I think it's a better attitude to have. Again, it will be controversial in some circles to say this, but for me, I actually think that if you are trying to encourage more people to become vegan, the worst thing you can do is tell them that they have to become vegan, because otherwise they're evil and they're wrong. As soon as you start denouncing people want to rebel and want to fight against that. If you want to encourage people, then give them reasons to do it. Give them amazing vegan recipes in a vegan cookbook.
And do so in a compassionate way. And I think I believe that I will let God do his job and convert the world. And I think I will just be an ethical, principled being, and just be kind and generous to all people. And hopefully, whether it's my diet or whatever it is, it may convert them, and that's awesome. So I'm not a crusader for telling people, you can't eat this or you can't eat that. And I'm not a nutritionist either.
No, nor am I. If people could see me from a little bit below where they can on camera, they would know pretty quickly.
We all have that problem. Yeah.
But you're not a nutritionist. But what you are is a writer and I should put an adjective in front of that. An amazing writer and a spectacular poet.
Thank you.
Well, I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. I've read some of your work, and today for the first time I've heard you speak the words that you write, and that adds something even more powerful to it, because there's a rhythm, there's a cadence, there's different emotions that I maybe wouldn't have felt if I were reading it myself. So, what was the first thing you can remember writing?
Oh my gosh, you know what? Oh my goodness. I'm sure I must have written little poems as a kid, but I will say the first thing that I consciously can remember writing. I love that book, Little Women. I just love that book, and I rewrote it as a play. And I was in my teen. I was a teenager. And this was before I realized that I wanted to pursue a career or life as a writer. I could not suppress the urge, right, to be creative in that sense. And so I rewrote that book as a play. I chose a cast. I directed the cast. We designed costumes, and we staged that play. And we had not promoted it because it really was just for our church congregation. And so we had an attendance of about 150 people. And at the end, those people were so upset. They were like, why didn't you promote it? Why didn't you tell other people? It was really good. And that's when I knew I was really talented.
Incredible. Yes. That must have been special, because there's a lot to be said for realizing what you've got from within, and not relying on the words of others to substantiate your work. But we're all human, and to be able to hear other people say, hey, look, you did a really amazing job, and actually we wish that more people could have seen the work that you have performed, must have felt quite special.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. And you know what too? Playwriting is another, like I said, I'm multi-genre. Playwriting is another genre that I really love, but I haven't touched that much because that requires, a lot of I would say attention to writing plays and that sort of thing. But when I attended Mount Holyoke, and I took drama. I took a drama class, and one of the final pieces, I think we had to write a play. And what I did was, I'm always finding ways to trick and to get dual benefits out of my writing. So I took a poem and I dramatized it, and I added music and choreography, and I performed it. And I remember my professor at Mount Holyoke saying, I was graduated. She was, if only I could hold you, keep you here. I want to place you in my plays so that, and this is not self-praise. This is just being honest because we're having a candid discussion here. Yeah. And I feel as though it is okay in this world at times for us to be honest and share how we feel and what it is we can do. And without it being bragging or egotistical. So
you're completely right on that. I mean, there is a line, and there are some people who you think, okay, come on now, you've told us enough. But at the same time, I think most people understand when when we're trying to just give people an understanding of who we are, what we've achieved, and what we would like to continue to achieve. Yes. And if you're, put it another way, when I speak to people who have been reading their own work and say, and I've done this to myself in the past, and they look at their own work and say, oh, even the stuff they're writing at the moment, this is awful. This is the worst thing that I've ever written. I want to tear this up. I want to throw it away, etc. There is actually a really good point to be made about being critical of your work and actually understanding the things that you get wrong, because you can't improve if you just say, well, this is all amazing. However, there's a difference between saying, this is completely awful, I don't want anything to do with it, and saying, actually, there are bits that can be improved here, but let's have a look at how I can improve it. And also occasionally going, you know what, that bit was really good. I really like that bit. That's the best bit of writing I've ever done. That's the best bit of acting I've ever done. That's the best music I've ever performed. If you can have that balance, then I think you're in a good place. And we all, including me, many times, have gone to the lowest and to the highest points. But sometimes that middle ground is where we need to be. So, sorry, that was a bit of a monologue. The reason I wanted to do that was to say, please don't be ashamed or feel like you have to explain when you were saying that you were good at something and you were telling us that you had people who told you that you were good at something. That's amazing. Well done.
Thank you.
Hold on to it.
Thank you. And I have to agree with you, Stefano, that we have to be critics also of our work, because that's how we improve. If we write something and place it out there and it's never tweaked or polished, even after it's published, the work grows and becomes better, and we need to let it breathe. You put it out there so it has life, and then you tweak it, just like we groom ourselves and all that stuff. So you're totally right. We have to be our own worst critics, but I did like what you said. You read a piece of work and you said, oh my God, what was I thinking? That's the worst. But you extract the good parts of it, and you use that to enhance the piece and to still put it out there and not just condemn yourself and throw in the towel or the pen or whatever it is. So
now, at the beginning of this podcast episode, we, and me as the host and our listeners, were privileged to be able to hear two beautiful pieces of poetry that you have written. And the reason I wanted to bring them back up at this point was because something our listeners don't know about is that you mentioned to me just before you started reading them that these were in a manuscript that is not fully polished yet. This is these right, amazing. These are just ideas that you're writing down and have developed into something. Now, I guarantee you that our listeners will have had no idea that these weren't fully polished because they were incredible. But it does point to the fact that actually, you tell me what you think it points to, because I know there's something interesting.
I really do appreciate that question, Stefano. I really do. And part of it is me being rebellious. It's me saying, academia, give me a break and let me be the writer. Let me liberate myself. Let my fans, let readers see the vulnerable part of me and then the polished part of me. And just let me enjoy the work and let other people enjoy the work as is. Because this will become better. And you know what, too? I think it's confidence or maybe it's cockiness. Who knows? I know I can write and I know I have talent. So I really don't care. I want to share. These are all unpolished. As a matter of fact, I do have there's the one that I told you that I add music and choreography. Well, I think I have it in here and acted that piece out. It's in its raw stage here.
Oh,
now,
amazing.
Of course, I will admit to you that the reason is because also my computer crashed. So I have the polished or somewhat polished versions on my hard drive, wherever that is, that's being fixed. So because I knew I was meeting with you today, also I grabbed my I would say rustic unpolished manuscript. And so it's knowing that you're going to continuously work on a piece, right? And you're saying, well, the piece is at stage 1 now, and then it gets to 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And you're seeing that evolution, how it's progressing. I'm not not all of my poems or work would I share at stage 1. I would say these are probably stage 3.
Okay.
Of their rawness.
They're at a point where you think actually you've written something that can be read to people, but at the same time it's maybe not quite as perfect as you'd like it to be. Having said that, what piece of writing is ever perfect? Eh? But yeah, it's not quite at the stage you want it to be. If I'm not being too forward, is it possible to maybe hear one other piece from you, because the first two earlier on were incredible?
So I'll read his poem. The title is She Couldn't Leave. And it's just about how sometimes we're trapped in life, whether it be in situations, relationships, families, whatnot. So, and of course, I wrote this years ago. So the title is She Couldn't Leave. She wanted to run from it all, like a smile erased from a broken face, like the summer that gives her warmth away for the cold autumn air, but she couldn't leave. She was anchor. They sat on her. They held peace because of her. She couldn't run away like an ungrateful puppy nurtured to dog, just ups and leave like a wanderer who had found sure footing. She couldn't leave. She was fearful she would no more have one to call family. She wanted to be safe. Yes, she was selfish. And they were family. They angered her. They hated each other. They stayed family because of her. So she couldn't leave. For she found warmth in the bitterness. They were that circle. Only time could eventually break.
Wow. There's so much depth to that and so many questions. What I love about all of your work so far, and all 3 pieces that you've read, is you give us a sense of what you're describing without giving us every single detail, which means that actually it can apply to our own worlds to a degree as well. Yeah. Tell me a little bit. You don't have to answer these questions, by the way, because it sounds like a very personal poem. But tell me a little bit more about what inspired that poem, where it comes from.
I think this poem is inspired by my personal life, by observation of friends and colleagues and people that have these situations whereby sometimes we all want to save people or things, and we feel as though our family or the world cannot exist without us saving whatever that is. And so this character, whether it's me or someone else, is, I guess, there are conflicting emotions within this person, and they want to leave, but they feel it's their duty to stay, remain where they are. And then also, and this is speaking of me now also, there's the aspect of the grass may not be greener on the other side.
Right.
So you're hugging security and you're holding on to what it is you have that's tangible in your hands right now, what it is you're experiencing, because you're afraid of the unknown. What if I ventured out there or away? And it could be, I know this is talking about maybe families, but it could pertain to a job, to a new venture, whatever it is. We're afraid of the unknown and we hold on to what we have. And sometimes that inhibits what we could really attain in life. And so this
There's
goes
often
all over.
the question that I hear asked in these kinds of situations, and it's a wonderful question, but obviously it's much easier to say as a philosophical point than it is to actually implement in life. But the question is, you don't know what's going on the other side, you're right. So what happens if you make a jump? What happens if you don't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's often a good question, because people often say, well, you know what life is like, and it might be bad, there might be all of these troubles. It might be comfortable or easy if it's maybe a work type thing where you're like, well, I don't really like it, but it's easy. So I don't want to go for that promotion. I don't want to do X, Y, and Z. But you don't know how it's going to change. You don't know what's going to happen the next day. So actually, there are consequences of inaction as much as there are consequences of action.
It is true. And I would want to, I might want to, I'm being vulnerable here because I could be wrong, but I feel as though in most cases we should make that jump, because life is not meant to live in a stagnant state. We already know what is, and we're comfortable, but we need to get out of our comfort zone and like stretch ourselves so that we could attain the max of what God places. Or if you don't believe in God, what we're here to. And then I feel also in taking that jump, we create stories. It enriches our stories. And we are more of value to the world and of people that we encounter, that we can mentor and help. I feel it's not only about us. Life is not just about us living it, but I think in living life, we ought to be able to do something significant, something of value to change those around us, you know? And of course, we can't change people unless they want to change. But at least we put that option out there. I've been there, and this is what I can offer. If you would like to partake or receive what it is I'm offering.
A lot of people talk about the idea of purpose, and I think that's what you're getting at there. And that can be beneficial to you, and also, as you say, to people around you. Now, this can be pertained in many different ways, and sometimes, as you mentioned earlier, people force their purpose, force their ideas on others, and as far as I'm concerned, that is not a good way to be. That's just my opinion.
It's not.
But it's not.
It's not a good thing.
No, but as you say, if you have a purpose and you really pursue it, I think whilst always being open to the possibilities that you can be wrong, being open to the possibilities that there are other options which you are yet to explore.
Right.
I think at that point, you're then leading by example and people will potentially follow you. But even if they don't, that's fine too. It's not a point. It's not the point isn't to try and get people to follow you. The point is just that you're doing something which you think is really amazing. And potentially other people will see that it is amazing when you go down that path. So I really like, I think I'm just rewording what you already said, but I really liked your point there.
No, you're sort of, I guess, giving me clarification and solidifying what I've said. And so listening to you give your perspective, I think it makes more sense to me. And I wanted to say also that something I thought about while you were speaking. Yes, it is that you'd want to be of service or help others. And I do mean like in a tangible way.
You'll surely agree that Sheron has already helped you in a tangible way. We'll hear more about what she means soon, but first, a quick reminder that you're listening to the incredible poetry, stories, and insights of Sheron Mingo, our magical guest on this week's episode of the Storytelling with Puck podcast. We'll continue to explore the idea of making the jump. We'll find out how to connect with Sheron, and we'll have a story from Puck Creations after Jackie Goddard offers us the power to speak.
My creativity at its best, it's a real exploring. It's a surprising journey.
I think creativity is just
the antidote to insanity, and it's productive originality.
Surprising answers, inspiring stories, motivational, educational, inspirational. Wise words with Power to Speak the podcast. Find us on your favourite podcast platform or watch on YouTube at Power to Speak the podcast with me, Jackie Goddard.
For example, as leaders, you're a leader. I dare say I'm a leader in some capacity. And I feel in business or in academics or academia or wherever it is, you have a mic, you have an opportunity of sharing, and in sharing it transforms. In social media, the things we write on Twitter or Instagram or whatnot, Facebook, I'm hoping that it's inspired by our experiences in life, and there's some wisdom behind what it is we're offering, and people will listen because I listen to what people write out there. Some may not be some may be a bit crazy, but I'm able to distinguish and separate.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot to be said, and we talk about this from a business point of view all the time, and I'm not a psychologist, and I don't claim to be, so people who are might dismiss my point here. But I think there's a lot to be said for, before going out and reading what the world has to say, is understanding yourself. And this is going back to what we were talking about earlier with purpose.
Yes.
If you understand yourself and you understand what matters to you, you know what your values are, you know the direction that you want to go.
Yes.
You kind of have an idea of, you know, the kind of personality that you have and whether or not that's the personality you really want to have, or it's a personality that, you know, the world has kind of forced upon you, if that makes sense. All of these different factors, again, so many things that I have no idea about, and that an actual psychologist will tell you a lot more. But if you have some understanding of yourself and who you are, then when you're reading all of this stuff online, when you're reading social media, when you're reading books, when you're watching shows, when you're doing whatever, walking down the street during the day and seeing people doing their own activities and people watching, when you're doing all of this, you take it from the perspective of, okay, I see what they're doing. I like this bit. I dislike that bit, X, Y, and Z, because you already know who you are, rather than taking it from, I don't really know what I like, so I'm just going to follow this person because they seem to be doing well, or I'm going to really go against this person because they seem to be doing badly. I think you have to be able to weigh everything up, and the only way to do that is to understand who you are.
I think so. You need to know your identity, and not just what you look like physically, but exactly what you're saying. Know your limitations, or maybe we don't know our limitations, and that's why we take the jump. I was thinking, just for clarification, for anyone that may view that when we say take the jump, there's a lot involved in that. Strategize.
Yeah.
So what it is, you're going to make a career change or a decision in life, love, whatever it is, you need to really process that well. And you need to have know your options. And so if the outcome is negative, what do I do then? If it's business or whatever, have your finances together and understand, should I make that jump and it's not in my favor, then how do I recover? Yes. So a lot of strategizing is needed before you make that jump, and get mentoring, talk to people. And I don't mean people who do not have vision. Oh my goodness. One of the most sinful things that we can do is speak to people who are visionless, who do not understand that we're dreamers and we're aspiring and we're going to achieve things. Speak to people that are where you would like to reach or to be. Yes. And so because those people have their wisdom, they have experiences, because I think I don't know about what's his name? Elon Musk. I'm probably killing his name.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's made mistakes. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's never made a mistake. But I would want to declare that every successful person, at some point when they were starting out, and even in their success right now, make the worst mistakes possible. But resilience, that's another thing. Resilience. And I mean, years ago, I may not have been able to say this, but life, when you've lived life a little, whether you want to or not, you learn certain keywords: strategy, resilience, and that what you said about I would call it self-love, but in a healthy way, a wholesome dose of self-love.
Not being egotistical, but being comfortable with who you are.
Exactly. Understanding yourself. And I will use this word, but I don't want to, I'll say brutal, but in a good way. Brutally love and protect yourself. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times when you're exposed to this world, you may not find a lot of people who love you or will protect you. But if you love yourself and know what it is you're trying to achieve, and you have your limitations and you have that protective shield, I think your and your level of resilience is there. I think you'll be okay. Come on,
you make a lot of good points. Probably. We should add probably to everything. But no, you make a lot of good points, and I won't talk about individuals. But I think you're right to say that people who get to the top are currently making mistakes. There are people who are going to be seemingly at the top, but actually in their own minds are nowhere near the top. They have, there's a lot going on with them personally that makes them feel like they're not at the top. And again, I think a lot of that. Again, I don't want to be given advice, so I'm talking from a person. Well, the reason I don't, and the reason I won't give advice, is because all I can tell you is what I've experienced in my perspective. Mm-hmm. If I give advice on this kind of area, then actually I'm not doing anybody any favors, because they have their own worlds and their own ways to live and their own understandings of life. Yeah. So I can potentially give somebody advice on grammar or something that I am actually an expert in. But this conversation is more of just a discussion to see where we both feel,
for sure,
we could take our own lives. And so my personal understanding and my personal way of feeling is I will be open to listening to absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
And I will take advice from absolutely everybody, even the people who you might think you don't want to take advice from. I actually think that everybody has good points to make. Even people who you might usually criticize or might usually disagree with, there's often something to learn from them. So I'm happy to listen to everybody, but I think going back to the point we were talking about earlier and some of the points you just made in your last answer a second ago, if you understand yourself better and you understand how you can perceive different people, that's when it's okay to listen to all of these different points of view.
Yeah.
If you're really unsure about things and you really don't understand, then there could be a risk of following the wrong path.
Yeah.
But part of the problem is when you're at that stage, you don't know who is giving you good information. You don't know who is giving you bad information. So that's where I think some of this can be, more complicated than I'll ever understand. But my personal way of dealing with it is to go, actually, I'm pretty comfortable with my positions on a lot of things. But the most important aspect I ever have is that I'm always willing to change my mind. And I think as long as I have that perspective, then hopefully that will take me to where I want to be in the future.
I appreciate that a lot because I think we learn to live life. Yes. And I think we have to be flexible and be willing to realize, well, oh my goodness, I thought the sun was going to shine today, but I notice it's cloudy. Yes, I was wrong. The sun is not shining. It's cloudy out there now. So we have to be able to change in our perspective as needed. I think, so you're right. And you know what I will say? I think a good mentor, someone who is skilled in a certain area that you might need help in, I think that's okay to be mentored, or maybe there's another name, right?
I agree. I think a mentor is, there's mentors, there's coaches, there's consultants, there's therapists.
Yeah.
It all depends on what you need. I definitely think taking advice from people who are skilled in their trade, that's usually mentoring. You then have different types of coaches who will not give you advice, but will just listen to you and ask the right questions to make you make your own decisions. Then consultants who will, that's more business related a lot of the time, but who will give you some kind of strategy, etc. going forward. Right. And then therapists who really, really dig deep. That's my understanding of those areas. Again, I could be wrong. But I think it's always worth speaking to different people and opening your horizons, and people who have trained to help as a mentor or a coach or whatever it is. Of course, they are definitely worth listening to as well. And a lot of them will tell you or will encourage you to get to know yourself better. And that's actually a lot of what comes from people who have that profession, etc.
Yes.
What maybe that we should talk about is an area that we're definitely touched on earlier, but I didn't get to ask you as much about as I would like, because we veered in different directions. But I feel like actually part of the answer to this will come back to what we've just been talking about. You mentioned earlier that you're multi-genre and that you like to write about lots of different subjects and you like to write in lots of different ways. Give us an example of a few of those different types of genres. We've already got poetry. We've heard 3 spectacular poems from you today. What else do you like to write about? Veganism and a vegan cookbook. That's more of a new one for you. But what else is there?
Goodness. All right. So I would say, apart from my innate talent, formally in training for my Master of Fine Arts, I did study, I would say, apart from poetry, I did fiction, which is short fiction, the novel writing, children's story. I've got some rascal, oh my goodness, some naughty little children's story. You know what it is, Stefano? It's time. I you know, and I really need to somehow, and I don't want to use the word discipline, because what's observing my time is necessary. You know, I just started my new business, which would incorporate my writing and as an entrepreneur. And as a result, I can do a lot of wonderful things as an author with the business that I'm trying to establish. So that saps a lot of my time, because I am more a writer than a business person.
Okay.
So that, for example, my poetry volume should have been published already, but I've had to delay that. And then I did not tell you, but I almost thought I would have a heart attack. My computer totally crashed, and I was unaware of what was the problem. So I've had no access to my manuscripts or my work for the past, I would say, going on 2 weeks now. So that has delayed me a bit. But so yeah, I've dabbled in some playwriting, but I'm not touching that, because what I have planned for future writing projects would be complete the poetry collection first, the first volume. Then I'd like to publish a collection of some of my short fictions. And then I want to move into, I've got about at least, I would say, 2 novels that are outlined. And so in my case, my problem will never be writer's block or lack of work. I have manuscripts all over. My thing is getting at that point where I can disconnect from the world and all the distractions and just tweak and write and edit my stuff and then send it off to the editor and have, you know, so I think I'm getting there soon.
Great.
Because of how my business is being established and moved. But I've explored many of the genres. Did that answer your question a bit?
It did. It very much answered the question, and actually answered other questions I had within the space of one answer too. So we're winning. I think many people who write either for a living or as a hobby will understand some of the constraints you just mentioned, and also people who have just ideas after ideas after ideas and kind of, as you say, manuscripts everywhere or just notes everywhere, but then struggle to get to that final piece which goes out there because lots of other things are going on, and there's a billion reasons for that, and you obviously have explained some of them just now for your personal case, but it's brilliant that you're doing those things, and I'm sure that we'll see the results of a few more of them coming
very soon. Very soon.
So let's explore just one of them in a bit more detail, because you said you've recently started up a new business which is kind of attached to your writing. What is it? What are you doing with this new business? How?
Why did I say that? I know Stefano would have. Okay, so I guess it's called branding. So my business is called Super Memento CA.
I've seen the website. It looks brilliant.
Yeah, we're working. So the website has been recently redesigned, and immediately after the designer sent me the link, my computer crashed. So I was unable to go in there like a writer would and justify those my bio or whatever, or tweak, and that's eating me alive. So yeah, so the website has been newly redesigned, and there's still some tweakings that need to be done, but that website and the business, the whole idea is that as I write my books and I brand myself, I will be able to also offer fun items that are associated with my books. So for example, I may have, let's say I offer a mug. I may have the title of a poem that's on that mug, or let's say a tote bag, or whatever it is. But it will have something, maybe a stanza from one of my poems, or maybe a phrase, maybe a dialogue from one of my stories. But they all complement the gifts and my writing. My books will complement each other. And also my website will be a platform for my books and whatever items I sell. Yeah.
Amazing. It's going to be a way for people to support you, to continue writing, and also to get a little something to always have nearby them to remember kind of some of your work
because
and some of their favorite pieces.
I'm generous. I hope I am. So on the website, for example, I want to do blogs. I want to post recipes. On the old website, I had I think 2 or 3 different writing awards, but because of time constraints. So on this new website and with this new business and all that stuff, those are things I see in the future, where maybe I create awards where maybe to teen writers, or maybe for the late bloomer, just different awards that will be created to encourage writers, or or the art in whatever sense. And then I will see how instrumental my website can be for viewers. I'm creatively wise. I think I will just pay attention to inspiration and to see how can I use the website in a way that it serves viewers and the community, that sort of thing, apart from my writing. I know my thoughts are just, I don't know how cohesive I was, but
No, you are. I think I think a lot of our listeners will understand then, and once they see the website as well, hopefully it will encourage them to then want to potentially buy some of your books when they come out, and obviously the vegan books are already out. But I think what you mentioned in terms of supporting new creatives and new writers to actively pursue their work, I think is vital. There are some people who will do it for a career, some people who will just do it for a hobby, and some people who will maybe be somewhere in between. But it doesn't matter who you are. I think we need to encourage people to be as creative as they possibly can. Everybody has creativity within them. Some people just haven't worked out how to use it yet. So if we can encourage them to do that, and by the sound of it, that's part of the reason you're setting up the award section of the website. I think that's a beautiful thing. There were a billion other questions I wanted to ask you. We haven't even touched on your Guyanese roots and your move across to the States, and the wonders that must have brought, and some of the challenges that must also have brought, I imagine, as well. But I thought I would just mention that so our listeners knew. And then maybe if they ever get to speak to you in person, they can ask you, because I'm fascinated. I'm going to ask you once we're off the podcast as well.
Well, I'm hoping, Stefano, that when I deliver my poetry book, that you will invite me back, and then you can totally ask me more about my background as a Guyanese, and about my Guy American background, since I also live in America. And I've been, and that's what, that's one of the reasons why my cookbooks, the flavors, are inspired by South American flavors, because Guyana is in South America.
Yeah, of course.
So the Guyanese and the American flavors, but I cheated. I put Caribbean American because most people will relate to Caribbean, and a lot of the Guyanese flavors are Caribbean. So I cheated in that respect.
I think that's allowed. We'll just call it marketing, but but that's so special, and I wish I could ask you more about that right now. But definitely, when the poetry book comes out, we'll chat about it then. as we don't have time to ask you all of those questions, the one question I do have for you, and I can ask, is if people want to find out more about you, if they want to discover more about your books and the website, which is about to be 100% completed, where can they find you?
So they can Google my name. I'm on Amazon. I'm on social media. Very new. I'm a babe in social media. Instagram, on Twitter. But they can definitely Google SheronMingoY.com. Add the www dot. Or they can, if they remember, I hope they learn this name, supermementosca.com.
Okay, amazing.
They will definitely find me.
Okay, perfect. And what we'll do as well is we'll make sure that you send us across all of those links. And so we'll put all of those links onto the show notes so that if people do forget the name or have trouble spelling anything, then they can just click instead. It always makes life easier.
And the number on my website actually does work. It's not just for show. So if they wanted to call at some point, we would respond.
I'm sure they would, and they can ask you all about your Guy American roots as well.
Yeah, or they can invite me to any of their podcast shows, or if they want me to speak, I can definitely be a motivational or a guest speaker. So I can do that for them also.
Absolutely fantastic. But for now, I should thank you, and I am extremely grateful to you for coming on and for exploring a range of topics with me and making me think about 100 different things. I love going away from a podcast episode and just thinking about it more for the rest of the evening, which I will be doing. So
you're brilliant.
Thank you so much.
You're brilliant. So that was pretty easy. I'm humbled to be speaking to someone so brilliant, and you're so engaging. I love your charisma. Thank you so much, Stefano, for even inviting me to be here. And I love the poetry and the writing the program that you had. I'm calling it the wrong thing. We just ended it in the spring.
Oh, the Storytelling with Puck, the initiative. Yes.
Storytelling with Puck. I love that. And I look forward to entering it again next year.
Yes, it will be back.
It
does seem a long time away.
So if you all have not, you really ought to join Storytelling with Puck. I mean, it's beautiful. It takes you into this romantic, just unreal world of literature, and you just you need to be a part of it. So for you who are viewing and listening, connect with Stefano and totally enter Storytelling with Puck.
That's exceptionally kind. Thank you very much, Sheron. Okay, so we will, as always, finish with a story. A gentle whisper roared like thunder. A lightning bolt tore my heart asunder. Tears like acid rain burned through my cheeks. An ice-cold chill left me no means to speak. Wind drowned out the ticking of my mind. My thoughts were clouded, thinking only of time. Surrounded by chatter as loud as hailstones, I was in the eye of the storm, and I was all alone. She was my sunshine, my guiding star. She was my moonlight, to brighten my dark heart. She was my rainbow, but now she's gone. She was my world. She will live on. You've just been listening to an episode of the Storytelling with Puck podcast. Your support keeps our podcast going, so please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. Subscribe to keep up to date with the latest episodes, and never forget the importance of sharing your stories.